in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 277. There's Edward St. Ange and Stewie showing up. And Adele was here, but then she was having technical issues. And microphone, camera. Technology's great when it works, isn't it? There she is.
I apologize in advance.
No, you're great. You're here. It doesn't make any difference when you make the entrance. Dun, 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 dun. And there's Stewie. Golly, here from Women. I was thinking I was going to just do the solo. Well, Black Friday. And the next thing you know.
Well, we didn't like the tears that you shared last episode. You know, we
the begging? Was there begging? I had begging too. I think I threw begging in there.
After the holidays. So.
Oh, yeah. I did the whole martyr thing. Like, oh, please. Well, thank you. I'm glad it worked.
The truth is, if we show up today on Black Friday, then we don't have to show up on Christmas Day. The rest of the guys have to do that shit.
That's right.
There you go. That's right.
We traded it out. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I just realized I didn't put gel in my hair today, so eventually my hair's going to go turn into this. I'm going to turn into this long-haired beatnik here real soon as it dries out from the shower. Next thing you know, I'll be like, yo, dude. So happy Friday, Black Friday, everybody.
Happy Black Friday.
Thanksgiving.
It is going to be kind of fun.
Stuart, did you end up going in line Wednesday afternoon to wait for a PS5?
No, man. No. I am a Nintendo fanboy through and through. That would be like cheating on my wife.
So I have a totally non-hospitality marketing question, more of a Black Friday purchase question.
Surprise!
I know, right? But why change the model? So this new SD card for they actually say that they're for the Switch. It's like 256K. Mm-hmm. Is that unique just to the Switch?
256 gig, I would assume, not K.
Okay, yeah. No, 256K. It's really small.
Yeah, no, it just has a Mario or a Link icon on it, but it's it's a
high speed memory. So I mean, you can get one meant for really good like DSLRs. They're the same thing.
Yeah, any micro SD will work in it. So
yeah,
you're good. Don't get the Nintendo one. You can pay the Nintendo tax on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I convinced one of my friends to pick a Oculus. Go figure.
How? Like you barely talk about it.
I know, I hardly ever, right? And so I go over and I go to because his wife wants to buy it for him as a Christmas present. So I'm like, sure. She says, can you just get it for me? I'm like, sure. I go, sold out. The 64 gig ones, the smaller version ones are gone. So I got to go back and talk to her today. It's like, yeah, hey, about
extra $100.
For an extra 100, you can get the much larger one, which I already have. But yeah, so
now just can you put an SD card in it to expand it from 64? You can't.
Nope, that's one of the big flaws.
I don't know if it's a flaw. I think it's because I had the same question about why they don't have the processor separate from the goggles, make the goggles thinner and lighter. Like, why not? Why do you have to put the computer in the headset? And I guess it's just because that way it's a little bit more efficient in processing to the...
Well, and that way you have to upgrade every year that they come out with new ones. I mean, they're playing the Apple MO.
Hello, Apple.
Yeah.
Although I am very happy with my 12 Pro. I got to tell you, the pictures, the LiDAR radar is exceptionally very cool.
We're going to have to add LiDAR to a bingo card because it comes up every episode now.
What's that?
LiDAR.
Oh, LiDAR. Yeah, that keyword is LiDAR.
I took an upgrade on my Samsung 9S Plus, whatever it is. Oh gosh, I'm having that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Are you still hearing the echo?
I am.
I can hear a little bit.
I can hear it too.
My phone won't work. My husband just spent an hour and a half on the phone with AT&T. No luck. I don't know. I'm sure I'm going to buy a new device after spending, $1,000 or more and only having it for 2 years. It just makes me cry.
That's a shame. Yeah, no.
Which is funny how intelligent the marketing has gotten on phones. Because if you think about it, they've got a lot of people spending over $1,000 a year when you consider most people like death grip their laptops for 5-6 years and are just annoyed if they have to buy another laptop for $700-800 to $1,200, right? Like same price as a phone. Yet people, like many people every year, are like, new phone time, let's go, new phone.
Yeah, we're a little more attached to our phone than our laptop. I mean, we literally take it to the party and to the bed with us, so it's...
You do?
Stuart, I don't really want to know the rest of the story here.
That's gross.
I cannot sleep without an Audible book going on.
Really?
I have a little speaker under my pillowcase.
Oh, by the way, Adele, congratulations. You are now on iTunes and Amazon and on Spotify. And yeah, there's only Deezer and Google, Stitcher. It's still the last two that haven't propagated on your podcast.
I haven't even heard of these.
Oh, wow. How exciting.
Yeah. Yes, you have. You have.
Stitcher?
Stitcher.
Is that for cross-stitching podcasts?
Stuart knows what Stitcher is.
Stitch is one of the big original 4 distribution places. It's not one of those weird ones that Lauren does that no one listens to.
I have you know that it's very profitable to be on the Filipino podcast network. Just so I'm saying. Actually, Filipino is one of the languages I put the podcast in. I do actually get a lot of people out of the Philippines to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, I look at our podcast geography breakdown a lot, and we get a handful out of Philippines as well.
Yeah, it really is. It's fun to watch. And Adele, I think I sent you an invite to the platformpodcast.co, so you can go into your podcast, and of course we got to jazz up your podcast page a little bit. But you can go in there and add stuff and what have you. But you can also look at the analytics as to the countries and what platforms open it and stuff. Stuart, are you getting a lot of people from Amazon listening to your podcast where they do the, hey, Alexa? No?
No, I mean, it works on that, but I don't think it's
because no one does that.
A lot of people do that.
No one's like, hey, Alexa, I want to listen to something that everyone else in my house also has to listen to.
Not necessarily. Each little Alexa can be its own little thing. You don't have to podcast it, everything.
I've got one on my side of the bed, and my husband has his own.
See? Although I did drive my wife crazy yesterday, actually. I installed the new wireless light bulbs in my kitchen, so I can just tell Google to turn on the light bulbs. She says, "Why'd you do that?" It's because I can.
You know what's cheaper than doing that?
Yeah, just
buying the smart light switch and just swapping it out.
Yeah, I know.
So that way you're not paying a tax.
You're not
paying a tax every time you have to change that light bulb.
The light bulbs last for 25,000 hours, and besides that, it's way cooler that I can tell each light bulb to change colors.
Yeah, because you have to remember what they're named. Hey, kitchen light bulb number 17, please turn on. No, not you 16.
No, I have a much more creative way of labeling light bulbs. And I don't have the mansion issue. I don't have the mansion issue right behind you, which is the sprawling megapolis that is Chateau de Saint Ange.
I think I have 25 of the smart light bulbs. I'm counting them up. Yeah, 25 smart light bulbs in my house, but they're all grouped, so I can just say like turn off downstairs lights, and all of them go
right.
Lights,
I love to go into the bedroom and say, Alexa, turn on Aurora Borealis. And I get like blue and green light theme.
It's funny, I have that one labeled discotheque.
No. Discotheque is when your Wi-Fi gets shut off and then when you back on and it's disconnected. All the lights are flashing.
Definitely my jam. And I have it turn on windy trees and rain nature sounds together.
Nice.
In order to tune out the sound.
See, and this is what you have to do to adapt when you live in New York. Are you finding, with how quiet it is in South Carolina, that it's a bit less, kind of stressful?
Oh my goodness!
Sirens every 2 weeks.
Yes, I mean it's so much less stressful. And actually, when I speak to the hotel people that are still working, I feel like they're in more stress than the people who are, are now outside the hotel. But Yeah, it's so much less stressful, and I lost 10 pounds, and I'm sure that that's what it is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've done a few stints where I've done 3 or 4 weeks living in New York just because of way meetings and stuff, and I always find by about the third week I'm wired. I'm really stressed out. You really take for granted having quiet. I'm outside right now, and you can't hear anything. You couldn't do that anywhere in New York City. It would be nothing but sirens and loud banging, and yeah, it's definitely it's nice to have the quiet.
And I wake up to birds chirping.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Tamara asked for your link, Adele, so I gave her your feed link.
Thanks.
And then she also made a comment about how she listens to Jason Stevenson, which it is kind of it is amazing. First off, I mean, podcasts in general. I mean, I know and you guys had launched yours, right? You know, your stuff, your show. So
Yep.
it is turning into a kind of a common medium of opportunity for people to be able to have some sort of conversation. As a matter of fact, I did a podcast about podcasting, the tools and stuff anyway. And because I think there is a place, strangely enough, and you know, Stuart, you should listen to my podcast sometime because I give you credit at the beginning of every podcast now.
Wow.
I
Really?
do.
There's
And
a little guilt in there for you. Stuart.
Yeah. Playing the microphone. Wait, what's the name of this new podcast that you're doing?
this new podcast, yes, the Hospitality Marketing Podcast, the new one, yes.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah, the one that's been out for more years than you let me count. Yeah, that one.
It is in my feed. I just haven't listened to it in 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
I have given you credit for many shows now. You and Ed. I've said, and it's my disclaimer. It's my Stuart disclaimer. Kids, do not try this at home. Make sure that all of your block and tackle things are done first prior to operating any of the following areas.
That's funny.
I do actually say,
Sage
I
wisdom.
call my inner Stewie out and go over and tell him, it's like, look, make sure your SEM, your CRM, your organic, your content, your schema, all these things are in line and you've maximized all your baseline opportunities before you attempt the crazy stuff I'm about to talk about.
And then hire Lauren because he's the only one that can execute half of this stuff.
You know, if you're going to sell a widget, be the only one that can run the widget. That's my
That's
motto.
right. That service contract.
That's right. Use this. You need to hire me to run it. Yeah, but no, it's been kind of fun actually in the podcast. I've enjoyed doing because it gives me the chance to kind of get down to some funky little tools on stuff. And podcasts, one of them. I think honestly, for the times that we ventured into this, we're not consistent with. I'll be honest about that. But we're not. But the times that we put podcasts out to help with local info or local what to do or local expectation based on the uniqueness of the travel at that time for that one hotel has been. They listen to it.
So how did you distribute that? Because it's something we've talked about a lot, and we've never had a client bite on the concept. But
Pre-arrivals. We've been only doing it on pre-arrivals and on the website content itself.
Yeah.
That's the two things we've done.
We're in a
We
situation
didn't do
now where close to 50% of adults in North America listen to podcasts at least once a week, right? So it's become mainstream. It's not as fringe as it was. So I think it is a channel. And if you think, if you're a drive destination, or I mean, I guess, or a flight destination, people listen to audio experiences on the way to your property. So giving them an orientation of what to expect and what to do, I think is a big opportunity for a lot of properties.
I mean,
Yeah,
it hasn't
well,
been.
and especially if you know people are driving in, because that's when I listen to all my podcasts is when I'm driving. And
Busy watching Marvel movies on the planes.
that's right. That's it. Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct.
I'm sorry. The
Duh.
uniqueness of that statement is how I.
Oh, speaking of nerding, as you know, I wake up early on Friday mornings just to watch the latest Mandalorian so that I've seen it before everyone else. Holy cow. You have to watch it. Holy cow.
Now, Stuart, have you been watching the right stuff as well? Have you started watching that yet?
I have
That's
not.
also Disney Plus. It's really well done.
Yeah.
It's made our Fridays really nice because they release both of them on Friday.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really well done. It's the Mercury astronauts, and it's really, really good. It's hard to believe it was National Geographic that did it because it's a show. It's a retelling of what the Mercury astronauts went through and everything. and it's just so fantastically scripted. The actors are fantastic in it. It's
Oh,
really, really good. Yeah, highly recommend it.
It's kind of fun. I mean, like I told you about the fact that I'm giving my friend the Oculus. What sold her on it was the fact that I went to the ISS station and was there with the Smithsonian Institute and Time Magazine when they brought the big 360 camera up and was that.
And I'm sorry, what was that done on again?
This
That was on the Oculus.
octopus?
Octopus?
Hey, laugh if you will.
We just
We
can't hear
will.
you talk about
We
this
will.
Hey,
stuff.
by the way,
Yeah.
I watched the Macy's parade in 360 with the Oculus, which was pretty cool. I was right there with the Rockettes.
How much
Just
are
saying.
they paying you, Lauren?
I wish they were. You'd think I'd make
Is,
money at
is
this point.
Oculus actually a multi-level marketing scheme?
It is. I'm on tier 2 of wannabe.
Because the way you're
I'll
going
three
at
more.
this, it
This is the new
really
Nexium.
feels.
This is
Yeah,
what it is.
It's the
Yeah.
VR experience by Amway.
Yeah.
Yes. Or fuller brushes, whichever how far back you want to go. No, it was pretty cool. Actually, I did watch the Merry Macy's parade, the Thanksgiving parade with Verizon offered it, which I thought was very unique. That you could be in the parade with them and watch the balloons and stuff. So,
What I thought was even more unique about it is they promoted that Verizon was offering this on the regular television show, which I thought very strange because, the ratings are what pay for them
Yeah.
to do this and to actively promote people off of your channel. Oh, that made me think of something. So we've talked about Hulu ads and how Hulu ads, I'm actually going to bring this to hospitality because it's really interesting.
What?
So I saw a Hulu ad from Uber Eats that I do not know technically how they pulled this off, but it was an Uber Eats commercial. And in the commercial, they were talking about restaurants that deliver to my location.
Yep.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't just
Wow.
national. It wasn't just national chain.
No, that-
It
the
was
IP
like
targeting
some-
and
It's really, so think about this. If I'm a hotel group that has multiple hotels in like a, kind of a sort of distance, I could run ads that are targeted down the zip code of, here you go. Here's the hotel experiences that are 1 hour drive from you, 2 hour drive. Because they were rolling it. They were rolling the Uber Eats restaurants in an interesting kind of graphic. And it took me a couple of seconds, but I'm like, wait a sec. Like, those are restaurants that are right here. And that tech on TV, that's really cool. That kind of targeting.
Dance.
yeah, we've got Lauren excited. He's on the edge of his seat right now. He's ready.
Well, I did that. I told you the Hulu Beta. I have it on the one. They let me have one client with it, and I told you the tracking is insane. That the targeting is insane. It's not zip code. It's down to DMAs and cities. You can have a big city tape, but it's still pretty amazing that you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they ran it in a really intelligent way where it was a fully produced commercial, but they kind of windowed out this one little area that didn't seem like it was windowed out, and that's where they were doing the dynamic part of the ad. And just really, if that's where advertising is going to go on the large screen, it's going to come back. I think it's going to become a primary, opportunity, because if you can do that type of deep targeting plus the tracking back, it all of a sudden you're in really interesting shape, because the challenge is today is we all know the consumer has changed to where they're multi-device entertainment at the same time, right? So being able to nail timing on the mobile device is a little difficult, right? But now if you can start doing dual device targeting, so know that I'm gonna watch the Super Bowl, have some mobile ads on Facebook, things like that, but then also start running targeted ads on the main screen. It's pretty sick. It's pretty sick.
I just today, as of midnight last night, started rolling the first ad set on Spotify and iHeart for one of the clients, and it has. I chose a larger DMA for it because I wanted a larger plan. But for $250, which was the minimum spend directly with them, it was basically a cent per connection or per view. So 25,000 people over a week's period of time will go over and hear my little 30-second audio ad for me. You do video too, and you do mobile or desktop, whichever way you wanted to run it. But you could do, I'll let you know how the volume goes, whether it actually converts out. We're sending them to our Black Friday holiday specials page and stuff like that. But you're getting that kind of targeting now. The other thing that just got bumped up was some of these podcast platforms allowing you to advertise on podcasts for the podcasts that allow for advertising drops. It used to be just generic. If you listen to that podcast, regardless of where you're at, the ad would drop in. Now they just rolled out their newer version of it, and they're allowing for countries now, at least. It's still probably not as refined.
Okay, so I'm gonna just start running ads into the Fuel podcast then.
I am. I'm going to start jacking.
We are not corporate sellouts yet, so we don't. We try to keep it pure.
As soon as you do, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, thanks, Fuel again." This is
I'm wondering what you guys think about this. Thinking about Uber Eats, there's a thing in Canada. They have stopped permitting Uber Eats or any of those DoorDash, any delivery service to charge more. I'm not sure if it's all of Canada or just Ontario. They're limited to 15% on the delivery fee to the actual restaurant. So and it's up to 20% on total fees, whatever that means. There's probably a flat fee and a percentage fee. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So
not including the tip.
Yeah, not including the tip. Sure.
Okay, so
that
seems like it was like, hey, this is a good idea. We're going to protect our restaurants, protect our consumers. You're screwing the driver.
You know what?
Uber and Yelp,
no matter what. But
any of them aren't going to take. They're not going to take the hit.
You know who's going to take the hit if they have to pay 30%? A restaurant doesn't have that big a margin. I mean, they just don't. And they're barely trying to survive. A restaurant, this is a whole big debate on LinkedIn, by the way. And there's Max, and then there's Alan Young, and then there's me.
I don't think, Edward, to your point, I don't think that the drivers were benefiting from that anyway. I don't think Uber was sharing the love with them much anyway.
Well, but I think Ed's right? Whenever governmental interference comes in,
they're not going to take the hit.
Prices, it trickles downstream. Like it's the corporations are going to find a way to manipulate it to their advantage. I think we got to, America is built on free markets, and I think something like that is not likely to happen here. Canada's a very different place. You look at some of the legislation they put on, which would here be argued that they're against free speech. So I don't see this happening here, but I think it's risky.
Bubbles. In New York, there is a temporary limit.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, there's a temporary limit. The thing is, I agree in free market and all of that, but I also think that there has to be some kind of regulation, because you can have the bullies, the big mighty bullies, calling all the shots. It's just like I have a feel about OTAs.
Yeah, but OTAs never took over. And the reason they never took over is they can't. Because if they go too high in their fees, they become a very easy target for other startups to slide in, as their value proposition being we're more friendly on the fees. And you saw that happen every time the OTAs started kind of soaring, and this was back before the major consolidation, but there were like a gazillion OTAs at one point, and there were quite a few of them that were running, hey, it's a 10%. It's basically a commission, and they all got kind of gobbled up because they were all able to get to a certain point of scale that then there was kind of the great buying, but the great buying also happened because the margins were coming down. And so the same thing exists in any type of free market is if you get too greedy, you open the door to be disrupted. And you don't need to put government control on fees like that, because the bottom line is, let us not forget, most restaurants had their own delivery drivers at one point.
Mhm.
I mean, that was a thing, and you favored the restaurants who would deliver to your house. The only thing Uber did was is they opened the rings of how far that would go, and they allowed the restaurants to not have to have their own delivery drivers anymore. Let's not forget that as part of that fee structure, you're not paying an employee to go out on deliveries anymore. And I know they weren't paying them well, but they were paying them something. And so that, it's not these poor restaurants. It's, if you were a pizza restaurant, you had multiple drivers if you were a good restaurant, and you constantly were dealing with having to manage that operation, having to deal with the complaints, having to do all of that. Uber and these other Grubhub and all these ones that have popped
DoorDash,
up
yeah.
have allowed that to be completely out of the restaurant, and it's no longer a risk for the restaurant. It's now its own entity. Well, there is a fee with that because
But
they
the
are
restaurants
saving
would
you.
prefer to send their own driver, but because
Ooh, I don't
the way
know. I mean, maybe in New
deliver-
York, I would agree with you on that because it is a very dense and it's a big thing. But I think once you get out of the dense city, I'm sure the pizza place is happy to not have to carry insurance for drivers anymore.
Mhm.
Because that insurance was hefty. Because let's not forget who most of the drivers were for pizza restaurants. They were teenagers. They weren't adults, and teenagers are expensive to insure, and it's problematic. So I always caution, because first of all, the government never does anything well. Okay, there's always a problem with anything the government does, and you end up having to kind of accept it when the government comes in. The government also never completely does what they're intending to do. I mean, a perfect example is the SEC, trying to stop public companies from doing shady crap, and yet shady crap happens a lot. And
That's a
it's
technical term.
and,
Shady.
and they because they don't have proper laws to regulate them.
but that's not
Sometimes
that's
we had regulations that were taken away, and then it
right,
got
but
in
they
trouble.
were right. So, but this is my point. Is in getting into laws like what we're talking about, where you're limiting the fee structure that can be charged for a service. That is, first of all, absolutely insanity. That's the government picking winners and losers. Secondly, it will affect. It will be made up some other way, and I'll give you a perfect example: resort fees. Resort fees were the free market's way of trying to get around OTA commissions on certain things, and getting around other forms of costs in business. There'll always be a way that something new is cooked up. It's either going to be put on the consumer or it's going to be put on the business, because it's a middleman, and the middleman needs to get paid. And if the middleman's adding value, like it will get paid. I mean, I don't know if you pay attention to what a meal costs buying through Uber Eats versus going and getting it yourself. There's a big difference in cost, and you know what? For the convenience of not having to go out and all of that, a lot of times the consumer just pays it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, I think this is the point of free market, right? Sometimes you're willing to pay it, sometimes you're not. And and when there's a supply and demand situation, and the government steps in, it stifles innovation. It stifles
Yep.
new competition coming in. And
Right.
like, there's been times when I've gone to order on Grubhub or DoorDash or Uber Eats, and I use all three of them. I kind of price shop, and different restaurants are on different. But there's been times when I've done it, and I'm like, yeah, that's just a lot of fee right now. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna just pop a pizza in the oven instead. So I think if you look at this market, it's been interesting because Uber really had the leg up. They had the infrastructure, they had the drivers, they had the logistics figured out already. And yet folks like Grubhub and DoorDash were able to slice massive chunks of the market because freedom of competition and innovation was able to happen. I think the government stepping in. And hold on, Tim Peters calling. He said, when you invent the shipwreck. And
a couple of things we knew going into the pandemic, as another example, GoToWebinar was pretty much what most people defaulted using because it was the one that most people were familiar with, common with, or had downloaded to the computer. And then Zoom all of a sudden in February decided to make it open up for free, and all of a sudden they just totally crushed the market.
Yep.
I mean, GoToWebinar is now a backwatered program. Even Microsoft Teams is probably more adopted than they are. And that's
and actually, since Zoom did that, GoToWebinar, Microsoft Meetings, all of those have become substantially better.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
To try and
that didn't happen because the government stepped in. It happened because at the time Zoom had a better product. It was a better experience. There was less friction. There was less dropped conversations than GoToWebinar, and people gravitated to the better product. And
so to that end, I think, in all honesty, and I'll say this from a market cycle, that a lot of things that are being used right now, first are adaptations to the immediate need, and eventually there'll be a long-term transition. So to Adele's point, I think what's going to eventually happen is we're going to plow ourselves into a resistance where these feed models are going to be challenged by something else. What that something else is, who's to say? Maybe a lot of localized restaurants will get smart and use a lot of these free adaptive apps that they simply come down to a matter of marketing. How many people can they get it in their hands to use is really the modifier between it and the convenience factor of the Uber Eats that's already known and established and distributed and marketed, compared to some localized free usage where not one restaurant gets to pay for the platform, but through some platform that isn't charging for it, they all decide they want to get on it. Whatever that might be, the market's going to shift.
But that's not going to happen when the government stops the greed. I know that sounds crazy, but stopping Uber from being able to inch up in what they make, you've created their ceiling. That's going to stifle the little guy from coming in.
But it is stifling the little guy from coming in because the restaurants are closing. Because
they're not closing because of Uber. They're closing because of government lockdowns, government restrictions, and no government aid is why they're closing. They're not closing because Uber is, charging them a certain amount because they could.
Because if they have a 10% margin, and now instead of delivery being a portion of their business, it's the whole enchilada, and they have employees that need to work, and they have people that are willing to deliver.
Right, but if you're a smart business person, you charge more on your product on these platforms. I mean, you can easily upcharge every single item 20%, and you pass it on to the consumer, and it's done.
Yeah, and I think that there's lots of examples of restaurants that have not had to rely on this. They've even gotten creative and create their own delivery service and encourage people to order direct, or they're going to form a co-op with other local restaurants. I don't think it's because of Uber that these restaurants are going out of business.
I know unless Robert was here, we say he probably lived through this. You figure the transition that happened when we went from horse-drawn to cars. We had paddocks, we had stables, we had a whole infrastructure to clean up after the streets on them. We had harnessing and block and tackle, people that were building stuff and so forth, and buggy whips and buggy makers and all this other stuff. And the car comes along, and there was probably this transition of what those other things were doing to a point where they no longer could transition. And then things changed. I say this because the things that we're used to, the restaurants with the sprawling seating or the intimate seating or whatever they bought square footage to operate the way we knew restaurants operated. Regardless of how well the vaccines work, or regardless of how well we transition out of this, the social impact of what this does will have its own effect. How much? But the idea of it is that our business models will change. Ghost kitchens are a thing. If you said that 2 years ago, people would look at you like you had, two heads. What are you talking? Ghost kitchen? Like spooky Halloween thing?
It's basic supply and demand, right? The market needs change, and the offering has to change. Jeff Bezos always says.
And if you look at that, the idea of a ghost kitchen is actually what restaurants need to be worried about on the delivery side of the world. Mm-hmm. Because a ghost kitchen usually goes into an industrial space, which is a much lower cost piece of real estate. They're laid out for volume. And they're just far easier to manage. It's less of a team. It's everything about it. And that's more of a threat. than to the traditional brick and mortar restaurant. But the other side of this too is, Uber and all these platforms have gotten a big boost through COVID time. Let us not forget these restaurants. A lot of them would have just closed. They would have just closed
They would
because
have
they
no
weren't because
distribution.
right.
you're
But Uber didn't get to that position because people prefer eating at home. I mean, let's face it, not all delivery food tastes as good
No way.
once it's been delivered than it does when it's
Hot out
put
of the
on
kitchen.
your right, exactly. And so there's, when times come back to whatever they'll come back to, people will dine out again because dining out is a experience that is, part of why you are going, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, and think about New York specifically, because we talked about that. Part of their struggle isn't the extra 10% that they're having to eat because of Uber, excuse the pun. It's because there's a lot fewer people in New York than there typically is. People
Yeah.
aren't traveling to New York. People aren't going to Broadway and then going for a meal. Like there's just less demand, which is going to mean, unfortunately, there's going to need to be less supply. It's basic economics, which is
Right.
Going to some other things too is that this is a concept that I worked as when I first went out to Houston, and I think there's going to be a resurgence of this idea. And just follow me on this. It was called Yapas. It used to be called Yapas, and there's a place out in Houston. It's called Eatsies, and what it did was it centralized a kitchen that produced some really excellent meals in kind of like not cafeteria style, but in bulk, and then they distributed into the restaurants, or really were restaurants or stores, that you could walk in and buy your meal. Now everything's chilled and everything's not hot and sitting ready, although we did have hot items for you if you wanted to eat right then and there. But the items were picked up so that you'd bring it home, warm it, and eat it. And so you had this amazing diversity. You'd walk in and it goes back to the old shopping malls. Oh, that salmon looks great. That chicken looks better. And you go through and you pick what it is you wanted by the weight or size you wanted. You brought it home, you warmed it up. It's not a new concept. I'm saying that happened back then. But now with everything else going on, to your point, if you can prepare food that's wonderfully done where you're not having to cook it because you're tired of cooking, you don't want to have it delivered because of the transition of quality, but you bring it home, have it ready so that maybe not now, but tomorrow you want salmon, with lemon and dill and everything else, and you have the warming instructions based on all the new cooking appliances that are out there. You add that to the fact that a lot of people are investing in their home life now. They've had to. I have friends down here that are retired that they would never want a pool in their backyard. They all bought pools because you know what? They're not going anywhere. So they want something to jump in now. And then so the home experience has gone up. Home entertainment is going to stay and possibly grow. We might go away from once we have the ability to, but we'll go back to it because we're going to get more comfortable having people over to do those things again. And this food medium might be one of those things where I don't want to go to a restaurant. I want to have all the real.
I'll give you a perfect example of it. Thanksgiving. We discovered 2 years ago that there's a restaurant here that does Thanksgiving order where it's all pre-prepped and you pay them, you go pick it up, and then all you have to do is warm it up. And I'll be honest with you, it's about 90% as good as if we had just done it ourselves, but it's hours less work and it's actually less expensive. So I went over. There's a barbecue chain here called Four Rivers, and and they've got it to a T. You walk up to the front of the restaurant. They have a tent set up outside the restaurant. They did this last year too. You walk up, give them your name. You had already ordered it online. They come out with like these. They had these custom bags built for carrying large amounts of food, and you can get full turkey, prime rib, plus all their barbecue stuff. And oh, by the way, the turkey and prime rib are done traditional, not barbecue. And it's amazing. And so yesterday, and by the way, the turkey and the prime rib, they give it to you in a vacuum packed bag that you can just put it on a cookie sheet, put it in the oven at 225, cook it for 90 minutes, and it's done perfectly, like perfectly. And so, when you look at that concept, some restaurants already do this. Like they're a perfect example. And I can't even imagine how much money they make on Tuesday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving because their restaurant was pumping too. Like they were full of people eating. So they were turning over huge dollars. And so that idea of, hey, if you're going to host, sometimes it's not big enough to cater, or you can't afford to cater, but sometimes it's too big to cook
Give
yourself.
me a brilliant idea of a sous vide restaurant where you keep everything in proper temperature, leave them in the bags as is, and then when people come to pick them up, they bring them home and put them
They
in
just
their
go
own
home and
leave 'em
just
forever.
go home and sear it.
Hey,
Yeah.
we did
Yeah.
the exact same thing this year. There's a restaurant called Magnolias here in Myrtle Beach, and they do the exact same. And it worked out. We had 15 people here. We socially distanced. We wore masks.
No, you
Don't
didn't.
get the nicotine in
Liar.
it.
Liar.
Absolutely, we did.
We're
My
switching on
wife
everybody,
was
Stuart. I know you're a
hardcore.
hugger.
I got my in-laws living us, so we had to have the brothers and stuff. So anyway, digress. We did it, and it worked out to like $12 a head. Like I couldn't cook for that cheap, that kind of a meal, and we had like so much food left over. It's ridiculous.
I'll share you a Thanksgiving story from yesterday. I'm now the Bubba Gump of turkey because I had bought. So there's this wholesale place down here called BJ's Wholesale Warehouse, and if you buy the certain thing,
It's a nationwide thing.
Well, no, it's not everywhere. If I when I lived in Texas, it wasn't in Texas.
It's up the entire East Coast. At least.
Oh well, East Coast. Okay, well the entire nation then.
At least.
So I
I'm
go
pretty
over
sure
and
I've seen
you had to
them
buy
on the
these
West
certain
Coast.
things. You had to buy these certain things to get a free turkey. Well, they didn't. By the time I got done picking the right things, which was really annoying, they didn't have a limit on the size turkey. So I picked up this 24-pound turkey because it was the biggest turkey they had. And I thought, this is before COVID. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna have a bunch of people. It'll be great, big old 24-pound turkey. Blah. Guess what? Not a lot of people, just Renee and I. So I went to cook the turkey yesterday, which is all good and big. It's huge, and I used my cooler to hold it. I couldn't flip the freaking turkey in the oven to, where you put the dark side up so that, and it was so heavy, and I didn't have the right tools.
By the way, if you want me to change your life, Coleman makes an oil-free turkey fryer. So it's an air fryer. It is. I've had one for about 10 years now, and it looks like a turkey fryer. Like it has its own legs, and you just hook it up to a propane tank, drop the bird in. It can do birds up to like 27 pounds, and it's amazing. It tastes like it was deep fried.
We used to tailgate. When I say I want another kitchen appliance, I'll send you the picture of the look she gives me.
Okay, it's called the Big Easy. And if you want to make, because like the countertop air fryers and stuff, they're all tiny. This thing, you can make 40 wings because it has like layers like this cage you can drop in with layers, and you can make 40 wings all at once in this thing. And it's the most simple device. There's nothing to break on it. Like it's so well made, but it's so simple that we've had the same one forever. And then cleaning it, you just, once it's cooled off, you take it out back and hit it with the hose. Done. Like
don't ask Ed about the steam cleaner either, because
you're all wrong. By the way, the best way to cook a turkey is in a brown paper bag. It is the most delicious turkey you'll ever have.
Brown paper bag.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Yeah, you put it on the pan and you stuff it with, you just rough chop some onions, carrots, celery, garlic, rub it all over with olive oil, and then get one of the old school grocery bags, the paper bags from the grocery store, which a lot of groceries still have. You just have to ask for them. And then you stick that over and staple it on one end, or if it's a big turkey, you get one on each end and then you stick that in the oven, and then you put it at like 375 for about 12 minutes per pound, and it comes out perfect.
And you hope to God that those brown paper bags weren't stored in a warehouse with bugs and stuff.
They're going to get cooked, any of the bad stuff. No, the only risk in it is you've got to make sure the turkey or the bag isn't touching one of the elements.
Yes, because it will catch on fire.
Yeah, paper won't burn at 375. I think it's.
Did you baste the turkey, Stuart? Did you baste the turkey?
You don't need to. The bag keeps the moisture in.
Okay.
Yeah, it keeps the moisture in, but it's not. It lets enough out that it's not steaming it. It's still roasting it. Oh, it's the most moist.
So, do you have any Thanksgiving tips since we all hit all our own?
I have been vegetarian for 33 years.
I did not know that.
I like to eat pierogies and squash for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
It's easy.
I did the sweet potatoes and the spaghetti squash and the butternut squash, and we had a lot of stuff other than the turkey, that's for sure.
Just for the two of you.
Yeah, well, I love to cook, so opportunity made Thanksgiving. Duh, hello. Yeah. And we had the best steamed vegetables and the green beans and the biscuits and the oh yeah.
So we
Now,
had a big
needless to
debate.
say, I got leftovers.
We had a divisive debate in the Fuligan camp this past week because we're a pretty diverse group from all over. And we have a good number of Yankees and a good number of Southerners, right? And so there was a whole raging debate about dressing versus stuffing. Discuss.
Which way did you fall, Stuart?
I both. Like I'm non-discriminatory.
And whatever it is, you never actually cook the bird with it in it. Just whichever way you go.
I don't. I do the garlic and the onion only, and I don't do
I'll
stuff
tell you
on the
what.
inside.
Cut an orange, squeeze some of the orange juice on the skin, and then put the orange inside the turkey with the onions and all of that stuff.
Depends where you put the oranges. Then it comes out with a whole different turkey look. But yes, and it was fun. Honestly, this was a Thanksgiving to be thankful for. I mean, in all fairness, uniquely, Thanksgiving has been a day of Thanksgiving anyway. But considering all that's going on, for us to be able to celebrate Thanksgiving was actually a thankful day, because there's a lot of people that did not have that opportunity, or those that are having troubles right now that they couldn't even take the time to celebrate anything. So for those who were able to do Thanksgiving, I did find it very unique, though. I mean, I find it kind of fun because I don't need anything because I already have everything that I ever wanted. That Black Friday, it's like I don't know what to do for gifts or presents, really. Because
did you see the sale yesterday on the AirPods Pro that Amazon and Walmart were running?
Yes.
Go with it, $159. What's
for the pros? Yeah.
Yeah. I ordered from Amazon. They're not coming till January.
Wow.
Think about the demand for that, though.
Yeah.
Well, Walmart
they had the regular
sold out.
AirPods with the wired
sold
case.
Before
120.
Amazon. Yeah, before Amazon started doing it. So they started doing it as a price match to Walmart. Walmart ran out right before Amazon turned theirs on, and Amazon just let it go. And so, it was like a $70 savings on AirPod Pros, which they generally only discount, secondary Apple products. You don't normally see primary products getting discounts like that. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I will say TVs, man, TVs are getting so cheap. There was a 70-inch LG OLED for like $1,600. 70-inch OLED. That's modern, technology. It's crazy. That 3 years ago, that would have been an $8,000 TV.
Incredible.
My daughter bought her first TV with her birthday money this month. And she wanted a TV for her room. We told her she had to wait till she was 10. So she turned 10. She bought a 32-inch television for $129.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
I couldn't believe it. And I was trying to explain to her that, like, when I was a kid, we had a 25-inch, like, console TV, that, like, was, like, would turn, but it was just a 25-inch TV. It probably weighed 300 pounds. And that's all we had when I was 10, like one TV for the house. And she's like, 25 inches. She's like, that seems really small. I'm like, it was big back then.
If Robert was here, Robert would tell you about the time when they just had fire and they put a little linen cloth in front of it and they made shadows.
I think Robert did the P.T. Barnum thing with the candle and the...
Yeah, that's what it was. But it is kind of, and also funny. I mean, I don't know whether you guys experience this too with marketing for Black Friday holidays. It wasn't really this grand announcement kind of stuff. It wasn't like we're going to trigger this when.
Well, because it all started 2 weeks ago, because they all knew if they wanted to maximize their sales, they needed, like, I think Cyber Monday is going to be a letdown this year, because Black Friday basically was Cyber starting November 1 for a lot of companies, because they knew that they weren't going to get the crowds. They still got crowds. I mean, down here, the news this morning was covering that, there were people in line, but nowhere near what it normally is. But, the fact of the matter is starting November 1, most companies put their Black Friday deals online.
Look at what happened in October. Amazon threw their Prime days out, and already Target was running stuff. Walmart did all of November. You're right. But
Yeah, we did an episode on the podcast, the Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast, that
the award-winning one.
I told everyone you need to get out early. If you waited till Cyber Monday this year to run your deals, you're going to be sorely sad because a lot of people already booked their hotels. We've been running since early November, and they've done really well. Accumulatively, they've outperformed previous years. So it's been good.
Yeah.
And it's also now more than ever the
I think
messaging.
it's going to stick next year. I think people will do the same. November's just going to be a month of sales moving forward.
Which will be great because then you could actually like stay closed on Thanksgiving and not open. I mean, because it was starting to get ridiculous where stores were opening at like 3 o'clock on Thanksgiving for their Black Friday, and it's like, come on, really?
Yeah, they didn't have any. They actually in the news down here locally, they made it that there was only one person because it was a tradition that was out front of Best Buy. And he said this is the first time we've actually had Thanksgiving because Best Buy for the first time was closed for Thanksgiving all day. So they had Thanksgiving, and then they showed up and parked outside for Black Friday deals for Friday. You know, it's like okay. But
now, one thing I do think we should do as an industry, because there's a lot of people still skittish about traveling and not ready to commit to booking, right? Because we still there's a lack of clarity related to the recovery timeline, even with a vaccine. But the end of January, so I think this coming year, it's January 26th, is International Book Your Vacation Day. It usually falls like the last Tuesday of January, I think. And
do you have to get people cards for this? Is this a Hallmark?
No, well, no. It's something that I think a lot of the DMOs, like the international DMOs, kind of rally behind. But I would love to see the industry as a whole, like not just DMOs, but the individual properties and things, to really promote this as a catalyst. Because hopefully by the end of January, we should have more clarity, right? We should know that by, I don't know, June, July, August, whenever, we're going to kind of be in a better situation and travel is going to be a little more acceptable. So if we could create a Black Friday, Cyber Monday type of event around that date, I think it would be really good for the industry to try. You know, we're all going to be hurting and recovery is going to be tough. This could be a little catalyst, a little spark that lights the fire behind the industry.
I think it's a good idea.
But we need the buy-in, right? We're going to need folks like HSMAI and AHOA and US Travel and HLA to really push it to all the members and shows like this and our individual podcasts to really try to rally behind that concept.
No, I'm definitely for it. I think that it's all a measurement, as you said, as to what people's safety and comfort. Because even just the math of if the vaccines went out, if all of them went out to their maximum production capability and distribution had no hiccups, problems, issues, or whatever, from all three of them right now hitting the market, they even said from those that take the double dosages and so forth, not even the partial dosages, it would take until August of next year before there would be enough people that nobody would be unwilling to take it. Just the logistics, it would take until August of next year for that critical 70% to be in effect.
But the reality is we really only need to get through the first wave of the frontline workers in the most at risk. Once that's done, we can pretty much get back to normal. If any one of us got it, the chances are we're going to be okay. You know, it's the vulnerable people.
Well, and actually, as treatment's gotten better, you're already seeing the death rate per infected rate is dropping, and you've seen that as they've started figuring out like even some of it's simple stuff, like put the person on their stomach and give them oxygen and kind of dangle them, and you don't have to put them on a ventilator. You're not going to kill them. And so I agree with Stuart. I think once you're past the high risk, I think once you're past the frontline workers, and honestly, even as you start to put dent into the rest of the general population, we don't need to get to the level where this is like stomped out, right? We just need to get to a level where it's not going to overwhelm the hospitals, and the ones who are most likely to die from it are protected. If you get to that level, then for most other people, this isn't a life or death thing. It's a nasty flu, and actually for a lot of people, for some reason, it doesn't give them anything.
Not as bad
But
as yeah.
even some
right.
people who don't have a lot of symptoms during COVID say that the chronic illness that they've had after COVID has
Mhm.
been hell, and they didn't have a problem really during when they were sick.
Well,
They're
they say
still
that about 10% of
even
the
young
10%
people.
of the people that contract it get the long-term effect. I guess again, it goes back to what you're saying is true, and I agree with you in the numbers. And I also say it's going to be a perception of usage for those people where they're that even though that's happening, that people's perception, the social impact, probably the best way of saying it, the social impact of people's behavior is still going to have a residual aspect to the true demands and usages and going out
To a
stuff.
degree, right? But that might manifest in more people wearing masks throughout the year, and that's not a bad thing for society. You know, don't forget,
No.
look, 40,000 plus people every year die from flu in America, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
it's not like we don't live with these kind of situations already. In how often do you see on the media how many people have died of flu? It's no, hey, it's flu season, take your flu shot, but it's not. There's an acceptable. I mean, it sounds really bad, right? Every death
Yeah.
obviously is terrible, but there is, as a societal level, there's an acceptable tolerance level of this disease.
Well,
people
and
are so
I
ready to
forget
get back
where
to
I
normal.
was reading it, but someone did, kind of, if we covered, serious car related injuries and car related deaths at the same level, people would never drive a car because the numbers are insanely high on how many people get life alteringly injured or die from driving, not from being hit. I'm just talking from driving an automobile. The numbers per day are staggering. I was reading an article about it, and society accepts that there is a inherent risk to living. The challenge is when something like this comes up that has that's kind of beyond that threshold. And quite honestly, if you look at most people, once they understood what the kind of here's what it is, those are the people who you're seeing kind of out living their lives because they accept the risk. Those of us who don't, kind of look at that as crazy, but the unknown fear is what caused a lot of what we've done. And as certain people knew that okay, if I'm this or this, like this potentially is going to kill me. If I'm not this or this, here are my chances. That put a lot of people to all right, I'm fine, and they've moved on with their lives. What we need to do is we need to get those numbers to where the majority of the population is in that situation, where they feel like the risk level, the risk associated with doing this is acceptable. I will go on with living my life the way I see fit. Sure, it may be slightly modified, it may be slightly altered, but ultimately, I'm no longer going to, stay in my house nonstop. Right.
I agree with you, and I think travel is going to be generational because I'll tell you. I mean, I don't know with Russian roulette. One bullet, 6 chambers, spin, click, until eventually odds are against you. And being the oldest one on the show today, I will go over and say that as things go forward, things that you never ever worried about, you worry about now as you move forward in life. I don't think anybody right now is worried about falling. But I can guarantee you, when you start getting into your 60s, you're going to be worried about falling because falling means permanent hurts. And so, same too with this. Even though the odds might be down, and as mentioned, the impact of what can happen to you can go up. And it's acceptance of risk. You can't run your life fearful of everything, but by the same token, you can be smart enough to realize that there's times that you shouldn't take the risk because it's too inherent. 4 people died in cars down here over this weekend. Their Thanksgiving is forever changed. From exactly what you just said, car accident, stupid car accidents, drunk person in a ditch, drunk person in a canal, drunk person hitting head on with somebody else. That should stop people from drinking. Doesn't stop them from getting out of a car. But I know.
Listen, let's talk about the thing that COVID still hasn't beaten in numbers, which is heart disease.
I was about to bring it up. We all still bring.
It's not even close to the annual deaths caused by heart disease.
Absolutely.
And yet it is not nearly like heart disease doesn't even get the billing that cancer gets. and cancer is number two. But heart disease, the amount of people it kills, yet people still smoke, people still drink, people still live sedentary lifestyles. Um, you know, people have, and no one's losing their minds about it.
Right.
And people say, well, it's not the same thing because COVID's a contagious thing, heart disease isn't. Yeah, but you're not holding any companies liable for their kind of role in
Well,
driving the heart disease issue.
right. You're not
That
chasing
includes
Dunkin' Donuts down because they did an ad
Right.
on some super
Well,
glazy
but
donut.
like, let's go even bigger than that. The sedentary job market, where there are people who sit nonstop all day, every day. Like nothing's being said about, hey, you need to make your workplace safe because
Mhm.
heart disease. Even though heart disease is killing an insane amount of people a year. The fact that you can still buy cigarettes, vaping, all of that stuff, that is just horrible for you.
Well, just as you
And
pointed out, whatever government rule comes up, somebody finds a way of working around it. Cigarettes are
right,
prohibitive. Oh, guess where vaping came from? You
right.
know, there's a methodology to getting around this stuff,
And I'll be
and it
honest
doesn't
with
turn
you,
important until
I'd
you have
rather
that
walk
problem.
through a cloud of cigarette smoke than walk through a vape cloud. Oh, vape clouds are the worst. Oh,
But also, it's not as immediate. So you go to a party, and then and a week later, you can't breathe. That's not
Mm.
what happens when you smoke.
no, well I completely understand that. I mean, if we talk about, if we're really going to say as a society that we want to take great efforts to stop things from killing people, then heart disease would be one of the easiest ones to have. Like you could get heart disease out of the top three by doing the types of crazy stuff we've done to stop COVID from killing people. Now, I'm not saying we overreacted to COVID. I think we reacted correctly. I think the investment that we've done is correct. I think protecting people, I think all of that is correct. But when we're talking about moving forward, when you're talking about stabilizing COVID to being, because quite honestly, with the vaccines, if they're truly going to be 94% effective, you're going to get COVID down to flu numbers as far as deaths a year. People will go back to normal when that happens. It's not
I
going to
don't disagree
be
with you on that. I think what the key element to this is, and I'll use it as a friend of mine that tried to start a cottage business and quickly got shot down. He thought about running around to doctors' offices and helping them, and additionally sterilize things for those who are feeling susceptible going to the doctor's offices during COVID. Like, I'm going to do the extra cleaning for you, so forth and so on. And he thought that the doctors would love that because then it makes some patients who are high susceptibility safer. And the doctor's office's response was, "No, we're okay. They can't hold us liable for it if there's something, if they catch it, if they came in because of staying with us." So our society is based on blame. If I can't get blamed for it, why should I worry about it? So, and I don't mean to pick on Dunkin' Donuts because I think they're great donuts, but or Krispy Kremes, whatever. If I can be told that I can make you something that technically isn't healthy for you, but you enjoy it and I can sell it, so I make money from it, and then you get heart disease, you can't blame me for eating my donuts. And
right.
that's a shame. Now,
Well,
some countries,
it's only that way because there's no societal outrage about it.
right?
Let's
As a
let's be
society, if
honest.
we got mad about those things, then I couldn't sell donuts because people were like, "What are you doing trying to kill
Right,
people?"
right.
And yeah, you also see some of how the governments on some countries are reacting. Canada has bubbles. They have bubbles now up there that you have very stringent rules to be in an area. Period. Can't leave, can't go, can't do this, can't do that, can't be here, can't do these things. And even with that kind of lockdown of government intervention, their numbers are going up because you can't stop the aspect of what is going on with this because people are still going to do whatever they do to get around it. What
You
did
can't stomp out a virus in a free society at
no?
all.
Well,
Like
what did
you
Ben
can
say
slow it
earlier?
down. You can stop it from completely overtaking you. But you're going to have the same amount of people infected as the virus is going to do in its natural course. It's how long do you draw it out to stop it from completely? Because the problem is when you go over the hospital's abilities to treat, you're going to magnify the amount of deaths because people aren't going to be getting effective treatment. You're going to exhaust resources, and that's just going to cause like a 20, 30, 40x multiplier on the death rate. That's what the lockdowns, at least in the US, were supposed to be about, Where people have gotten weird, and I can understand why you'd get weird, is people seem to have forgotten that, and a lot of the lockdowns that you hear talked about today, or even the procedures you hear like kind of being tossed around by certain states and stuff, I think people have forgotten that, it's not a problem if you're running, with 20% capacity available in your hospitals, and you can do that with 7,000 cases a day in your state, you're okay. It's, because understand, most hospitals generally only have a 5% available capacity. They're run optimally. It's not you will not stop a virus by causing people to go home and stay home. That's not how it works. You just slow it down a bit. It will linger until you have real treatment or vaccines. Like, it's just going to be there. And whenever you try to open up a little bit, you're seeing it in New York. New York's numbers look a lot closer to Florida's numbers since they've opened up a little bit. And you would have thought, oh no, New York locked down so severely for so long, like they should be able to open up. And people almost seem surprised that like they have cases again. And it's like, no, it's not how this works. I mean, it's not how any of this works.
To that end, I agree. But also, again, it goes back to you have to take care of yourself if you're worried about certain things. I know just from medical things of it, you can't just trust that the doctor knows everything that they need to know, that everybody's, before it used to be polite that if somebody didn't wear a mask, you're like, oh, well, now it's like, hey, dude, you want to talk to me? Mask. I ain't talking, or get the heck away from me. I don't want to deal with you. I have business. If they're not going to ask for people to mutually share the safety of everyone else, I'm not coming in. And it's a free economy. Those that that don't care, go right ahead. I'm not, but that's the only power I have influence on right now is what I can take care of myself for at this point. So I appreciate stores that enforce consistency of mask usage because we don't have controls outside of that right now that are measurable. So if there's a guy down here that's suing the local government because they're trying to enforce mask mandates at this store and he refused to do it and he's a big Trumper and all this other, and it's like, I'm not going to give you $1 of my money, and I may never ever hurt your business, but you'll never get mine.
Right.
That's all I can do.
Same reason why I will not ever give Walmart $1 of my money because I hate what they do to local economies. Same reason why I will never give Chick-fil-A $1 of my money because of the way they actively hate people. You as a consumer have the power. And don't be mad when your power is not enough to completely stomp out a business, but you can at least sleep better at night knowing that you had principles that you lived by.
I would give Stuart $1 for his podcast, though. I would do that. I'd give Stuart $1 for his podcast.
We have delicious chicken just like Chick-fil-A. So,
hey, from a marketing
without
perspective,
the hate, they serve their
without
chicken
hate.
without hate. Yeah,
right. Hateless chicken. So from a marketing perspective, you can't talk about all joy and happiness and holiday, but you can talk about the joy of the holiday. It's like a fine line right now. You can talk about the happiness that the holidays can bring. As a matter of fact, they just talked about in the news recently here that put your decorations up early if you have them. If not, go get some or whatever. Get into the feeling of holidays, that mental, we talked about the last show. The mental anxiety, the anguish, the depression, the uncertainty is real. It's physical. It hurts people. And unfortunately, can push people to do terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a message from marketing that we can do it without being overt, like, oh, buy, stay, do. It's like, we can't push that, but we can push hey, you have loved ones. Everybody wants to travel eventually. Here's a way of buying something for them that they can enjoy when they feel safe about travel and stuff. And it's some of my clients have gift cards programs and they're phenomenal. They're selling crazy good. And then the other clients don't have them. And I'm sorry, I'm going to bash brands. What the heck aren't you guys doing for some sort of buy without having to stay thing? This point, buy 1,000 points for $100, really? It's absurd. The lack of brand support to substitute purchase is what I'm thinking of gift cards are for people to stay in future tense. They're not doing anything for that. There's no incentive other than buy now, stay now that the brands are offering to their brand constituencies. And it's frustrating because a lot of people probably would buy something that will allow them to travel in the future tense, and not by making a reservation in the hopes that they don't have to bump it to a later date, which is all the only option the brand hotels have right now.
By the way, I mean, the other thing, like, there still have been no really like big outbreaks linked to any hotels, right? I still haven't seen any in the news.
Travel
No,
in
well, the whole
general.
surface cleaning thing, it's still a little baffling to me. Yes, I still wipe things down when I get them from a store. You know, when I do the curbside, pop the hood, they drop the stuff in, and off we go. But I still wipe everything down. But the contagion from that is very small. But I still do as a safety precaution. But
Well,
good.
I think hotels have done an excellent job, and part of this is because of the responsiveness early on from governmental and local government a lot of times, and then regional and national. But setting regulations about what are the protocols that you should introduce to try to keep your staff safe, because really you think about you visit a hotel, unless you're sitting right on the pool deck, and even then you're not really interacting a lot with a lot of other staff in a way that's risky behavior, right? You're not spending multiple minutes talking to or right in front of another guest. You're very isolated in a lot of times in a hotel if you're doing it right, and people deliberately are taking that to the extreme right now. So the chances of you contracting it because you're going to and staying in a hotel are very, very small. Now, if you're going out to restaurants, it's a whole different ballgame, because you're literally sitting close to other people, and people are walking by you going to the restroom and things like that. But hotels themselves, because the staff are protected, the risk of you contracting it or there being a mass outbreak is negligible at this point.
Right.
Yeah, the thing I'm more concerned about, even eating outdoors in a restaurant, the last 2 times I did that, and we like scoped out the patio first, made sure we were going to be, 12 feet away from the other tables. And then the waiter comes up to you with the mask on and then drops their mask to talk to you.
What is that?
It is amazing.
I would pull that out. I would pull that out immediately.
But this is also like people's inabilities to understand like safety, like now completely makes you understand why there are so many unplanned pregnancies, because people obviously don't understand that, like, the nose hanging out of your mask, you might as well not. You're actually just making yourself uncomfortable for no reason. Like, might as well just not wear a mask, because you're not wearing a mask. The people who do that pull it down to talk. First of all, masks aren't some magic like sound device where sound can't travel through them. You think that sound is coming out differently because you hear yourself differently. People can still hear you. You don't have to move your mask. It blows my mind. Or the people who are like, drinking water while walking with no mask on, and they're like, well, no, it's okay. I'm drinking, and it's no problem. It's like, yeah, but you're breathing out of your nose while you're drinking. Stand still. Stay away from people. Drink. Put the mask back on.
I was at a meeting. It was the first in-person meeting. It was for a local organization, and they did an excellent job, like enforcing masks and all that stuff. And there were a couple of people throughout it was a couple of days. There were a couple of people that would pull down their mask to speak, and a lot of people would say, let's keep them up. But I did see one person literally pull down their mask, cough, and then pull their mask back up.
Yes, I saw that too.
I'm like,
in a grocery store.
you're missing the point.
Believe it.
Well, and if you ask them, they'll probably tell you, because it's really gross to cough in your own mask. And it's like,
try sneezing in your mask.
Anyway.
Not fun.
Yeah, right.
yeah. Well, my son, whenever he walks out into the sun, like for the first time, sneezes, never fails. He always puts his mask on in the car, and then we go to the parking lot, to go to wherever we're going, and never fails, sneezes in his mask, and is like, oh, my mask is gross now, because he's 6, so he's producing gross stuff. And we're like, Eddie, wait till we're about to walk into a place to put your mask on. And he never fails. He's got his mask on.
Poor thing.
Gross. So gross.
It's a
All
bad
right, listen. And speaking of family, they are here. They're back. I had a little break. It's really nice to see you
Dude,
all.
thank you
Thanks.
so much for making it. I thought, and I sincerely appreciate the effort the day after Thanksgiving and everything. And thank you. Sincerely appreciate you being here, Corey.
All right. You all enjoy. I'll
Enjoy
talk
your
to you next week.
Yep. Bye, Ed. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, well, what was it? Ben was talking about the fact is they did regional or citywide or city lockdowns in England, that he had people that were going to drive out of the lockdown to go to a city that they could drink in, then come back. And it's kind of like, I think you're missing the point of the lockdown. So Stuart, what's the rest of your weekend looking like here? I mean, you're not working, right? Right?
I have some work to do today, yeah, but not a lot. The families left. They just came in for the day, and again, they were appropriately behaved and be masked throughout the experience.
Now, is this your wife's family or your family?
Yeah, it was her family. Yeah, people in England don't celebrate Thanksgiving.
Well, they come over though as an excuse, or maybe they just already lived in the area because
No,
they
there's
went
a thing called COVID. I don't know if you've heard about it. But
No. I was just thinking that they wanted to hang around you so badly that they made amends.
No, it was my wife's family. It's honestly, it was the first time. So typically we would go a couple of hours inland from where we are to her extended family, all the aunts and uncles, and there's like 100 people plus would gather together and eat buffet food that everyone brought, and it would have just been a nightmare. So we decided this year we would not do that, and we just had my wife and her mom and dad who live with us, my two boys, and then my wife's two brothers, one of whom's single, and then the other has a couple of kids. So it wasn't too bad. But yeah, they've all left, so it's just us, my four, and then the grandparents now. So back to normal.
What would you do now that you have the house that doesn't have the extra space, secret room to it? Where did everybody sit?
So that's why we moved. So if had I known before we bought this house that I had a secret room in the old house, we might not have had to move. But because the in-laws were moving in with us, we needed more space. So we moved to a house that has like a little mother-in-law suite behind the main house. So it gives them privacy and independence, but lets us keep an eye on them as well as they, as they get it.
Adele, what did you guys do? Did you stay at home quietly, or did you?
Yeah, we had a Zoom with my brother, who's a doctor, and his wife, and they're in New York, but they're moving to the South too. They're going to the Atlanta area, Alpharetta, and my parents. My 86-year-old parents managing their Zoom. It took a little talking to manage it. My mom is pretty amazing.
That's cool. You know what I did with my parents? Because they are technically challenged, let's say. That's the nice way of putting it. So I bought them an Echo Show, the screen Echoes, from Amazon. And I have one in my kitchen. They have one in their living room. And because it's both on my account, they can just drop right in to either device. So I can just say, drop into Nanny, or she can say, drop into Stuart's kitchen. And they don't have to touch technology. They just, it's so perfect. It's
sounds perfect.
Yeah.
By the way, Adele, you are timeless. You sent some old pictures up. What you said were old pictures. I swear to God, you have not changed. However many years back those pictures were now. I'm always like, oh, I didn't know she was, at such and such a fan. I'm like, wait a minute. She's like, oh, 10 years ago this. I'm like, seriously? 10 years ago? You didn't change at all. It's like, dang. Meanwhile, I look at pictures.
That means a lot to me because I had Bell's palsy on both sides of my face, which I thought I would never be able to show my face again. And, it took a couple of years to heal, but I'm so grateful.
No, you have not changed at all. Honestly, I was looking at the pictures. I'm like, yeah, but what's she doing there? And then I'm looking at it, and it's like 10-year-old picture. I'm like, you got to be.
Me and Ollie, the TripAdvisor owl.
That was one of them. Yeah, there was a few that you popped up. And you with some of your friends, too. You had some pictures of you and some of your friends. I'm like,
oh, yes.
No, all good ones. See, I'm what is it when you stalk somebody on Facebook? You don't see yeah, cyber stalking. That's all it was.
So when you went cyber stalking, what did you do? And what's your plans for the weekend, Laura?
Oh, I'm actually after the show. I'm purposely not working today, other than the show and making the podcast.
Oh, this isn't work. This is fun.
This is fun. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. after this, I'm going to do the podcast, and then we're going to go hop on the boat because it's going to finally get chilly down here. It's going to get into the 50s next Tuesday. Ooh.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah. So we're going to go hit the boat today, and kind of it's beautiful, sunny, and probably everybody and their brothers on the water, but we don't care. We're just going to go putt around and bring the puppy out with us and just hang out on the boat while the weather's still warm and toasty and stuff like that. That's
And
at
can I
least the
just
plan.
say, Lauren, that you called it at the beginning of the show that your hair, as the episode
yeah.
went on, would start to get some volume
It's
to
going
it.
to turn into hippie length. I didn't put any. Normally, I put gel in to hold it back, and this time it's like, if you take it, look.
Yeah, it's getting some length to it, bud.
Yeah, it's got. I got the hippie beatnik look going on nowadays.
it's
Which
a
is
holiday weekend.
I haven't gone to the barber forever, and I used to have a ponytail when I used to own restaurants, so it all worked out really well. It's like, I'm just going back to my days of when I first met my wife. I'm just like, hey, if you don't mind it, I'm just going to go ponytail it, and she's like, yeah, no problem. So I'm back to the ponytail. That, and I'm shedding some pound or so. Who knows? Maybe I'll get back to my svelte, little, long-haired ponytailed self. So
We won't recognize you.
plus, I'm also going to Stuart, because I want to throw it in there one more time. I will be getting on my Oculus tonight because I have some newfound friends on Population One, and it's a great stress relief. Actually, to be honest with you, I've been using the Oculus more for going places. The 360 experience is so cool. Plus, on my last trips I did with the 360 camera, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can use Final Cut Pro and make the videos, and I can go back on my vacations again. So that's literally what I'm doing. Is I'm making the 360 videos, and I'm going back to when we last were over in Europe, visiting my family and walking around again because I was holding the can up on a stick like a tour director. People look at me like, I'm like, So and then I found a whole batch of videos that I did hanging the camera out of the car where my brother-in-law drove because we were looking at going down to south of Holland. And so I had the camera sticking out of the car, and I'm like, ooh. So I put all those together. So I've been having fun doing video editing and reliving my trip vacation tour. So yeah, thank you.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Have you seen the article about, or many articles about Accor and the new lifestyle brand? I mean, if you can call it the new lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, what was the name of it? Ennismore, with the Hoxton group. They bought, Accor invested $300 million buying SBE. Which had like the Delano and Hoxton, and what is the name of that very posh golf resort in Scotland? It was just named like the #1 hotel in the world. Glen Eagles, right? Yeah.
Okay.
It makes me crazy when I think about Accor having all of these lifestyle brands. I love it. I love the concept of independence, but it sounds like they're going to try to find a way to make it work and have them a little bit off to the side under the, what is it called? Ennismore instead of Accor, but it is Accor.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is kind of following up on what we talked about last week with just shifts in general and more people going away from the big flags. And I think this is a smart play from them, right? It's a defensive move from people trying to do their own thing or creating their own little new nuanced brands. I think it's smart. They got some high-end properties, some top-notch.
Very nice. Yeah.
I'm going to say it now just because I think this is a possibility of it. I think coming out of this, probably for lack of a better term, because I don't know what other way to refer to the fact when people start emerging from what they're dealing with now to when they want to travel, there's going to probably be a huge opportunity. Like you pointed out, Stuart, brands have really failed in their relationship value.
To varying degrees, right? Not all of them.
That is true. That's to be fair, to varying degrees. But you take something like you just talked about, Adele, and you approach me with some offer saying, hey, travel's coming back, or are you thinking about traveling? Build a relationship with us. We will treat you differently when you walk into these particular hotels or resorts. We'll give you this value proposition when you do this. That whole loyalty relationship, if it is done not from a frequency thing, like, oh, after you stay with us our 10th time, you get this, but rather start this way. Mm-hmm. We'll do this with you. Now, if you like it, then you're going to pay for keeping it or whatever. But that whole loyalty relationship opportunity, tour operators, packaged offers, soft brand loyalties. All those things will probably have a whole new value relationship opportunity, because you're telling me that you're going to take care of a lot of the minutia that I didn't have to worry, or that I would, be worried about normally. You're going to treat me special because I'll come and stay with you, kind of thing. I think it's pretty cool of an opportunity, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I really question whether what they call loyalty programs, how effective that is anyway. I think that, I mean, I make all my decisions based on experiences. Why not just give up front what it is that you want people to remember you by?
Yeah, that instant gratification. We did, this is probably 5 years ago now, we did a study, and we looked deep at loyalty, because the argument a lot of people make is that the big guys, they're not really loyalty programs, they're rewards programs, but they're not done in a way that is good for the consumer necessarily. And you even said this last week, Adele, that you have, you're a member of just like 10 different loyalty point systems, and I am too. And so when I travel, I'll try to look to see what I gain the most in that decision right there. In instant gratification, in the study that we did a few years ago, we asked, would you prefer to get a 20% value of your stay now, or a 40% value of your stay later? And people would rather get it less but now than more and later. Overwhelming, like 75% of people. So that instant gratification, those perks, if you really, your job is to try to get people to stay with you every time they make a decision, the best way to do that is through that instant gratification every time. And it doesn't have to cost you as much.
Yeah, I also think that they set themselves up for undelivered expectations, because I am always hearing from brand hotel, front office managers and people like that they're getting constantly complaints about people who didn't get to get into their room early, that didn't get the upgraded, but don't you know who I am? I'm a whatever, and I was able to do it before. And you're always, and there, somebody was telling me how excited that they were, because they were able to get from 63% guest satisfaction to 67% guest satisfaction, because he was able to maneuver some of that things, and so to have less complaints from their loyalty members. That was causing the complaints.
I talked to the GM at a Marriott, a high-end 4-star Marriott property. And she always says that the high end, I forget what's their top tier, like Cobalt or something, the Marriott Rewards or Bonvoy. She says when they know that they're staying, they just buckle up, because they know they're going to be the biggest pain in the butt.
Yeah, always was. Even the diamond ones for Hilton. So it was always those people walked in thinking they own the hotel. I mean, they feel like they deserve everything.
They feel like they got all this leverage, right? I'll take my business to someone else.
Right. Let me ask you just. What is the most stayed at hotel either of you have ever been in? Most repetitively stayed at hotel, not because you had to, for the fact that where you worked at, or
specific hotel or brand.
Nope, specific hotel. And how many times was it?
Well, mine would probably be due to sports travel, so I don't know that it counts, but that my kids would play travel soccer, and we spent a lot of times going to Charleston, South Carolina. So we ended up, for whatever reason, the team would always stay at the Spring Hills Suites in North Charleston, because Spring Hill's set up. You get the breakfast included, it's good Wi-Fi, the room layouts are great for a family of 4. So that's. It's not my favorite hotel. It's not through choice necessarily.
No, just the most frequent one that you've ever stayed at.
Yeah, it was.
How many times was that, do you think?
For me, it was Turnberry Isle, which is now the JW Marriott, by the way, because I could walk to my parents' house, but when I was there, I was at a resort. I was at a resort with a beautiful pool, with a golf course in my view. I could take, a lesson in something, get a massage, or my nails done, all those beautiful things. I had that complete resort experience right next door, walking to my parents, and when they used to live in Aventura. and they were dog friendly. And so it was great in that way. And it really wasn't much more at all. They had so many other Marriott and Hilton and other kind of hotels in the area, but it was not much more at all to get so much more experience. But I also thought that I could maybe help them out, enhancing their interdepartmental communications.
How many times did you stay there for the whole time that you've ever been going back and forth? How many times did you stay there?
I don't know, maybe less than 10, I would say, but
Okay.
near there, yeah.
Stuart, how many times did you stay at yours?
Yeah, probably around a dozen, maybe.
And for me, when mine, strangely enough, was Spring Hill and Mobile, Alabama, when we're going back between Dallas and Florida, that was our halfway stop. And we loved that. I told you many times stories about that, when we were moving big trucks and stuff, that the parking lot I could drive through without having to back up because I suck at backing up. But the idea is this, it goes back to what you just said. Even if I went to that hotel and they offered just what you said, Stuart, 40% later, 20% now, I still take the 20% now because I would never bank, even though I thought I'd be coming back, I wouldn't bank on the fact that I would be. So I'd much rather take advantage of the benefit now. And I bet, even if I look at places I've traveled to, the most frequent destination out of preference travels maybe been 3-4 times at the same hotel, Maybe if an event that was at the same location a couple of times or whatever, or I had to go to a conference in a certain city like Minneapolis when, for HSMI or something like that, I'd stay at the same hotel because I knew it and I knew how close it was to walking. And so, but still only a handful of times. Yeah, you make a great point. And Adele, you did the same thing. We base it all on this, we want to offer you this lifetime relationship, long value. You come back, we're going to treat you special thing. When in fact, it doesn't really happen in the volume that we want it to be. Why not? Our whole existence goes on what somebody said to us about us today. We're only as good as our last guest. And if we don't please them now, giving them value now, them coming back in the future, as much as we'd like to, they're going to come back because they get benefit to it now. They're going to come back later and try to get the same benefit. Why put the carrot on the stick and say, you got to come back another 3 more times before we give you something, which is kind of the basis of what you said. So it's a frequency program. That's not a loyalty program. That's you show up enough times, we'll treat you special, or treat you different program.
Yeah, it's almost like a quid pro quo system. There was another property that I'd stayed at a lot. It was near my mother-in-law's house, and we used to travel to visit them. And I probably stayed there half a dozen times, maybe 10 at the most. But then, and it was convenient. It was right near her house. It had the amenities. It had a breakfast, things like that. But then the quality went downhill, right? The staff weren't as friendly. I think it went through an ownership change, rebranded, and the staff were not as friendly, and the rooms weren't as clean. I've never stayed there again since. Like I went one time, had a bad experience, won't ever stay there again. It's not even an option. Doesn't matter how many points or rewards I get long term. If I have a shitty experience that one time, you're done.
I told you about that one time I had that hotel in Virginia, and a Courtyard was opening up down the road, and most of their corporate travel, they said, hey, look, we love staying with you and everything's great. The restaurant's great, service is great, rooms are beautiful and everything, but I'm going to go stay at the Courtyard because I can build my points up. So when I can bring my family for vacation, I got the points to burn. And we mathed out the frequency of those guests, 3 to 5 stays per year, as to how many points they would get going to the Courtyard instead. Translated that to dollars and said, we'll give you a $50 check to stay with us this year. Go get your points someplace else, but when you come through our town, stay with us, and we gave you $50, and we kept them.
Yep.
Because they actually enjoyed being with us. It's just they found a different motivation to go someplace else because they had to stay through the market. But again, it goes back to what you guys both keep saying is like they have to enjoy the experience now. They're going to talk about it now. They're going to do a review on it now. They're going to go over and think about coming next time because of how they stayed now, not because they get a free bottle of water the next third time they show up. Which is a shame.
All right, ladies and gents, this has been a pleasure. But I'm because you know what, it's a holiday day technically, so we will not burn the 2 hours as we normally tends to do. But because I'm going to go on the boat and go on my Oculus. Stuart, you're on the octopus on your boat. Okay.
On my boat. No, bad combo on that one. But yes, I'll take more 360 videos. So Stuart, when you eventually join the technology world, I will have videos to share with you.
Hey, it's in the hand of the gods right now, and by that I mean my wife. I told her what I want.
Tomorrow, eventually, we're going to have you join us on the show. You are always more than welcome because you have been wonderful joining us on a regular basis. We'd love to go over and hear and see from you sometime in the near future. So please, always feel knowing that you can come join us if you ever like to. Adele, thank you for being with us. Also, it was awesome. And for that matter, hey, you have a podcast. It's now on iTunes and everything else. If people want to listen to your podcast, where do they go?
You know what? You know better than I where to go. Sorry.
You got to put the link on your website.
You search for Adele on podcast.
I will take the link that you shared with me and put it on my LinkedIn. Thank you so much for that, Lauren. And everyone, please visit Aspire Reputation Marketing. If you're looking for some great advice for how to pick up the reputation or the amount of 5-star reviews you get, I'm hearing stories.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Come to my website and book yourself for a free reputation assessment. It's going to be great. It's been a lot of fun meeting people that way, and I think everybody's really good. So I hope I invite you to do that. And I'm going to be making a presentation for South Carolina and North Carolina. It's amazing. Stuart, Lauren, I'm going to share with you the link to that if you wouldn't mind sharing with that. Oh, I should probably put it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put in the show notes as well too. But I also recommend to anybody, if you're already not following you on LinkedIn, they should follow you. Put up some great articles. Stuart, not so much. Melissa does a great job. Just Stewie,
I've
Melissa
been
rocks it.
from LinkedIn for a while. All right, challenge accepted. I'll up my LinkedIn game.
Yeah, I was about to say, Melissa has it going on. Plus, Melissa is joining up on some pretty cool presentations as well. So too Adele. I mean, you guys have been hooked up with some great presentations. Stuart, I know you guys just pulled off a really good one as well. But Melissa, she's on one coming up next week, right? It's next week that Melissa's got
She
hers.
just had it last week.
Was it last?
one?
Oh, I remember that one. I thought there was another one she had coming up on it as well.
Yeah, improving the website experience. She talked about
Yeah.
booking in that don't suck. And yeah, it was good. Reducing friction.
I think I got the replay link on them. I'm not sure. I have to go look. But no, she's phenomenal. Honestly, I can't say enough cool stuff about Melissa, just so you know.
Yeah, very smart.
I sure
It's
do.
fun watching her spread her wings.
Yeah. And Stuart, if people want to know about you and your award-winning podcast, where do they want to go?
Well, you can go to anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Stitcher, and search for hotel marketing. Your hotel marketing will show up number one. And we've got a couple in the hopper that I haven't published. So it's been about 2 weeks since we published the last episode. So I need to pull my finger out and get those up. But there's 169 to listen to that are already published. So there's a good backlog.
Let me know when you start allowing ads to show up so I can start buying ad space on your
Never going to have ads. We're never going to sell out. We have a lot of people who approach us and want to sponsor episodes.
I bet.
Nope, not going to happen. It's if I believe in your product, we'll promote it, right? Because it works. Right. Just like Flip2. We talk about Flip2 on the show all the time because it's a product that works. And Ed calls me all the time and goes, hey, I got another lead from someone listening to your podcast. So, yeah.
That's nice.
Word of mouth is the best form of advertising.
Yeah.
Do things right. Create a good product. You're going to go okay.
Oh, by the way, Del, I got to send you over a link to a platform we've been using and started using with one of our clients. It's coming out really well. It's called Video Peel, which allows people to do video testimonials. And we didn't know how they react to it, but they're in their post-day letters and also on our emails, newsletters that we send out for the client, and also on the signature lines of the people that work at the hotel. And they're getting some really neat video testimonials for the hotel. So, anyways,
Nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So with that in mind, thank you everyone that joined us. Tamara, thank you so much. You're still there listening to us. And we'll put all the little links to all the podcasts and everything else in the show notes since we did not use Robert's list. Sorry, Robert, we didn't have time for you to join the show today.
Well, even touched on hospitality
We didn't
today.
have a list this week.
We touched a little bit on hospitality and turkey and Thanksgiving and combination thereof. We hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving and have a wonderful weekend for all that, and a new holiday season that people can be happy with. And until that end for this show, you can watch us on hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 277. And the podcast number 277 will be going out today as well with a quick recap. So thank you, everybody. For Stuart, Adele, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Adele. Have a great
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.